John Humphreys, host of Escaping the Chains podcast, where we go through stories and life stuff, just talking about how people found freedom from all kinds of different problems, addiction, religion, you know what it is. So today we have our friend, Bob Springer. He's founded Felonies to Recovery. I'm going to let him introduce himself because he kind of wears a few hats and has a lot going on, but we're really excited to have him today and kind of walk through his story on where he's at now and what God has brought him through. So, Bob, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Okay, my name is Bob Springer. I'm the founder of Felonies to Recovery. I work with Allendale Treatment and Bare Knuckle Recovery. I'm a part of the outreach team. I'm able to go into the communities and help families that are struggling, families that have a loved one that has struggled real bad with addiction, whether it be mental health, and I'm able to go into their environment and help them. I'm a person that came from the struggle, so I understand 100% what it's like to be stuck in addiction and what it's like to be feeling worthless. Yeah. So it's a blessing. God has blessed me in so many different ways in my life, and today to be able to even say that I work in the outreach is amazing for me.
So that's awesome. I want to, at the end of this, if you're watching, we want to get into a little bit of what Bare Knuckle Recovery does, because that's actually a really good source, especially in Indiana, for resources. If you know somebody that is struggling, that's the spot. Like, you can literally send them a message on Facebook. Somebody will respond to you, and they will try to work to get that person help. All right, so we have similar backgrounds, active addiction. I never went to prison, but I know we bumped into each other a few times, and I think it was about 4.5 years ago you got released from prison, and a few days after that you got sober. So how did you end up in prison to begin with?
Well, I ended up in prison the first time over drugs, second time over drugs, third time over drugs. My whole entire life, I was searching for acceptance. So when I was younger, I started out selling drugs. And I just, when we was kids and you would sit back and you would see the people in the Cadillacs, the pretty girls, all this stuff, right? It drawed me close. I liked it. My role models were in and out of prison. They ran bootleg joints. They were doing the most, gang members. And at a very young age, I used to sit in parties and I would glorify it. Like, that's what I wanted to be, right? So eventually it caught up with me and I started doing it and I went to prison. Well, when I got released the first time, I got into the drug scene. I got into popping Percocets. And then it was Oxycontins. And then after that, the heroin came. And my life completely spiraled out of control after that. And I was stuck in addiction for a good 7 solid years, probably. And
isn't it crazy? Because it's almost the same story. Like, it's like I started off with pain pills or whatever it is. And it's like for me, it's like I started off with pain pills, and then I tried Oxycontin, and then I went to methadone, and then I was on fentanyl patches. It's so crazy that, because I think I have talked about this before, but like, you don't realize when you're stuck until just one day you wake up and you're ready. You come close to killing somebody to not feel sick,
Absolutely.
Or go through withdrawals. But it's such a common thing. So many people are like, well, how'd you get into it? It was like, well, sometimes it's, it starts real simple and casual.
It was fun when it first started.
Yeah, and then boom, you're willing, you turn into like, for me, like, I was a savage. Nobody was safe. Mm-hmm. I was going to get what I needed to get. So, but yeah, I wanted to touch on that because it's like a reoccurring thing when we get together and talk with people. It's like, well, it just started off fairly simple, and we're on the weekend, and then before you know it, and that's the thing, is like, you don't know. I can't even remember. I can't tell you when I got addicted. I don't know when it happened, but I just know I woke up one day and I was I was different.
And when I started partying, I realized that I was never one that liked to really drink. When I drank, I always felt out of control. I was sloppy. Then you look at all the people in the party drinking, falling over. That never enticed me. When I realized what pain pills was, I could have a buzz and it speeded me to where I felt I could be accepted. I had the confidence to talk. I found it. I found it 100%. I just knew that if I could live the rest of my life feeling that way right there, I would be good, right? But I didn't realize that after doing this for a while, you weren't going to go to work. Even when I was in the streets, them was days that I woke up and I didn't have anything. I didn't want to go out and make no money. I didn't want to do nothing. The only thing on my mind was getting well.
Yeah.
So if I had $100 and I knew 100%, man, you're going to be kicked out of your house in 3 hours if you don't spend that $100, and I woke up sick, man, I was spending that $100 on some dope.
No doubt. Not
100%.
even a question.
Because in my mind, I'll hurry up and get well, and then I'll go chase and make $100.
Yeah.
Well, it never happens like that. It didn't for me.
And something else you said, because like when we tell our stories, obviously, and it's like, so, I didn't necessarily, like in my background, I didn't have a ton of trauma or anything like that. It was that acceptance piece of like, I felt when I went to parties and if I would smoke weed, or like for me, it was drinking when I was a teenager, like I felt more accepted. Like I could talk to girls and friends, I was funnier, it just like, it made me more accepted, I felt like, you know what I mean, and brought something out of me that I thought wasn't in there when I'm awkward and just at school, You
get that self-worth, like when like you said, you're that person in the party that's making everybody laugh, or this certain girl that you always wanted to do something with, but you didn't have the confidence to talk to her, and then all of a sudden you get drunk, you get high, and now you're just talking to her, laughing with her, and I like that. I really did. And I grew up with a pretty crappy background. I really did. It's no excuse to live the way I lived, obviously, but it's what it was. And growing up in my household, there'd be days you go to the refrigerator, wasn't no food in it, but there'd be alcohol. There really would be. Or this Christmas time, we might have presents, but then one of our loved ones take them and sell them. You know what I mean, to get their fix. And, so for a long time, I never understood addiction. But now that I've gotten sober, I know what they were going through when they were selling our presents.
Yeah.
Because I've done similar stuff myself. And it wasn't until, honestly, this last go-around out of prison that I was 37 years old. I woke up in Michigan City in a cell house. I remember plain as day, man, like it was yesterday. I woke up and I said, man, there's got to be something different in this. And it was just this feeling that I had inside of me that I felt like I was wanting to change, right? Like I really did, because like I said, I was 37, done did 13 years, in and out. I was a Latin king. I just was involved in so much stuff, man. Like, I've been involved in so much violence. By God's grace, I don't have no murder case or nothing like that. Like, I was meeting people that was 18 years old, 17 years old, coming in with 100 years. And the whole conversation was completely different. The way they laughed, the way they looked soulless. And I had this old school cat tell me in there, I was cutting up one day, and I popped out of my cell. After lockdown, I popped out, figured out how to do it. So I got out of my cell, and I ran down the range, and I actually got some dope. And I come back, and he was like, man, you're tripping. I said, what you mean? And he was like, bro, didn't you say you go home here soon? I'm like, yeah. He was like, that's an escape charge, right? And I kind of blew him off. Well, he called me back, and it was my neighbor. He called me back to the doors. He was like, bro, check it out. He said, I don't have a chance to go home. He said, I don't. He said, I will die in the penitentiary. This is where I will die at. He said, and here you are with a chance to go home, to be a dad, a son, a brother, a friend. He said, you have the opportunity, and you're wasting it. He was like, I would give anything to be in your spot. He said, to be able to go home and touch a female again. He said, it's the little things. He said, to sit out in front of a house and listen to the birds. Now, obviously, I thought he was just crazy, whatever. But when I got out, I sat at my dad's house and I listened to the birds one day. And I started crying. It was amazing. just to hear it, like to really hear it, like to be relaxed. So when I got out, my dad picked me up this last go around. Now, I didn't want to be sober, but what I did not want to do was go back to prison. I really didn't. So I tried to get a hold of this female to come pick me up, Michigan City. And I called my dad, and I'm like, hey, man, she's going to pick me up. How about I meet you in Elkhart? And he was like, nah. He was like, if you're coming with me, I'm picking you up. And I hated somebody to tell me what I got to do. Mm-hmm. So we argued about it. He hung up on me. I talked to my mom. Mom's crying. Bub, please, go with your dad. And I've been a mama's boy my whole entire life. So I'm like, nah, man. I said, I don't want to. I said, I would rather just go back to Indiana or come down there with you. And she's like, Bub, please don't. Go with your dad. She was like, go build your relationship back with your dad. I said, man, we ain't never had no relationship. She said, it's because you're on drugs. She said, you have to change that. So I call him back up, and I'm like, hey, man, I get released tomorrow night. Will you pick me up? He's like, yeah. So my dad drove up from Arkansas. He had retired from Goshen and moved to Arkansas. So when he gets up to get me, I come out. I literally have a T-shirt, pair of sweats on, and a pair of steak slides. And I walk out. I'm like, man, come on, let's go. Let's go. Let's get out of here. But when I walked out of prison this time, I was scared, man. I'm not even going to lie to you. Like, you know, most people's like, yeah, what you about to do when you get out? None of them thoughts came to my mind, man. They really didn't.
So the first two times when you got out, you were just like, you didn't have a problem. Like, hey, I'm going to go. Going back, it didn't matter. Like,
no, I had a needle on my arm both times leaving prison.
So you were already headed down that path.
Pulling out of a parking lot, knowing I had to go see a PO in less than 24 hours. I had a needle on my arm both times. I never made it. Both times being released, the first two times, I never made it out of prison more than 10 days without violating my paper. Mm. Now, I would go on a run for a while, but I was violated after the first week. 100% guaranteed every single time. So I had to live my life on the run. I would have to sneak in at night somewhere. My address was my dad's. So when I got out the second time, we'll back it up. When I got out the second time, my dad had an apartment in Goshen. Now, he worked for the city. So he knows all the cops. He knows the mayor, stuff like that, right? Well, I come home, and he just kept watching me one day, man. He was like, you're back at it, ain't you? I said, what you mean? Now, I thought I was slick. I went into the bedroom and did some meth. I come out, and he just looked at me, and he shook his head, man. He walked out of his apartment. Now, I've got a whole bunch of stuff in his bedroom, my bedroom at his apartment. And I had a lot of years in that room. And I said, well, man, I'm already dirty. I'm violated. So I might as well go all the way in, right? So I did. And I remember coming in to his apartment one night. He sat up and waited on me to come in. And he looked at me and he said, Bob, give it to God, man. He said, he will help you. I said, nah, man, God ain't got nothing for me, bro. I said, if he did, I wouldn't been living the way I was. And he said, it ain't his fault, it's yours. Mm. He said, you always been there, Bob. He said, I pray for you all the time. I said, well, stop. I said, you get up every day and go to work. He said, I do. I said, okay, I get up every day and I sell drugs. That's what I do. You got to accept that. You work, I sell drugs. And that really hurt my dad when I said that to him. So I'm going. He shows up one morning. He leaves work, walks in. He was like, today is that day. I said, for what? He said, you're turning yourself in. I said, yeah, okay. So I'm like, nah, my dad won't call the cops on me. And he's fighting with it because I am his son. You know what I mean? He don't want to do that, but I'm killing myself in front of him, man. So he wasn't playing. Like, he sat at his kitchen table and he was like, I'm not playing, bro. He said, you're going with me. And I was like, no, I ain't. So I grabbed a little bit of money and I left. I shoot out of his apartment. He calls me about 6 hours later. He's like, Bob, what are you doing? I was like, man, what do you mean? I ain't talking to you, man. You ain't set me up. And he was like, man, come home and get something to eat. Now, in his mind, if I was at his house, he knew I was alive and I was safe. So eventually I ended up going back to my dad's, promising him that I'm going to turn myself in, this and that. The last night I was there, I overdosed in my dad's house. He found me. He called the cops. Right before that, the same three of the 5 cops that came there, I took on a high-speed chase right before that. Got away from them, bragging about it, everything, go back to my dad's. My dad come beating on this bedroom door, man. I was nodded out. I woke up, and, man, I remember my dad was screaming at me so loud, man. I'm like, oh, he's mad. Like, he's probably going to put his hands on me type mad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, man, chill out. Well, he turns around, walks away. I don't know what I was thinking, but I did another shot of heroin, and I nodded out. I overdosed. I wake up to 5 cops on top of me in the bedroom. They Narcaned me. When they Narcaned me, I was already handcuffed. So I get up, and I'm looking around. I'm freaking out. And all I could hear out of everything going on, I could hear my dad, plain as day, tell the cop, don't hurt him. He's a drug addict, and he needs help. He's really a good man. He really, truly is. Please don't hurt him. I was known to fight with the cops. I would jump out a window if I had to. So all he kept telling me was, Bob, please, just go with him, son, get this over with. So I walk out the room, my pops are standing there, and my dad don't cry. He's crying, man. And he said, Bob, please. It still ain't registered he's the one that called the cops on me. So we're walking out, and I said, what am I being arrested for? And in Indiana, if you're on probation, anytime you get picked up on a violation, they still read off your original case, what you was on probation for. So when they told me kneeling and this, I'm like, oh, man, I done caught a whole nother one. So he was like, you are very lucky. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, you got a dad that loves you. I said, what you mean? He said, you was dead in his house. If it wouldn't have been for him, you'd be dead. Now it's registering. My dad's the one that called the cops on me. So I go probably the first 45 days in the county without talking to him. I was mad, in my feelings about it. And another old school dude in there tells me one day, he said, what you mad at him for? I said, bro, he called the cops on me. He said, you're his son. He said, if you walked into your son's room and he was dead, what would you do? And it registered. Now I started like, you're right, man, you're right. So I called my pops, we talked. I get sent down to Westville, and my dad came in and visited me as he was getting ready to leave for Arkansas. And my dad has never came to the penitentiary to visit me at all. He was never that guy that would come in there and see me. He was never that guy that would send me money while I was in there. And he came in, and when I remember coming out of the thing, getting ready for my visit with him, and the look in my dad's face when I was shackled up, it was horrible. Like, for him to have to come see me in there, I didn't realize what it was doing to him, I guess, you know what I mean? And he comes, he sees me, tells me he's moving, and I got a little mad. I'm like, man, whatever, bro, just take off then. And that's when he's like, you know, you can change your life and come down to Arkansas. Well, I got high the whole way through prison. I was high when I came and visited him, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't know no other way, man. Yeah. And I wasn't one of those people that went to jail to find God. You know, there's guys that come in there, man, and the first thing they do is open up a Bible. But the moment they walk out from behind them walls, man, they're right back at doing what they're doing, right? And I was never that guy, man. And I prayed, but it was always a 911 prayer. Right. Lord, please help me with this. I'll never do this again.
I need you right now.
Yeah,
Lord.
right.
Like,
yeah.
If you could just get this charge dropped,
yeah,
it would be great.
Yeah. And I got in some trouble at Westville, and they leveled me up and sent me to Michigan City. So when I got in Michigan City, it was 100 times worse with the drugs. It was flooded. Absolutely everywhere. I mean, you could get anything you wanted behind the wall in Michigan City. It's lifers. It's never going home. 99% of the camp is never going home. So they do whatever they want in there. It was like walking into a projects in Chicago. That is no lie. And I was affiliated, so I was all right. So when I got in there, I really, really got into Suboxone real bad, and I got into meth real bad. So I was strung out. When I got released, I was released from prison March 21st, 2020. My sobriety date is March 22nd, 2020. When I came home from prison, when my dad picked me up, we started pulling off. And he says, there's something you need to know. And I'm like, what's that? He said, if you're coming to my house, you're going to attend church twice on Sunday and once on Wednesday. I said, you can't tell me what to do, bro. I said, that's not no godly thing. You can't make a person go to church. He said, well, I'll tell you what. He pulled over on the side of the freeway. He said, get out of my truck. I said, do what? He said, I did you a favor. I signed you out. I did exactly what you asked me to do. He said, now I'm telling you to get out of my truck. He said, if you come to my house, that's the rules. He said, for 20 plus years, I've watched you kill yourself, your son, and everybody around you. He said, I've never had a relationship with my son because of drugs. I said, all right. So I get mad. I go back home with him. We don't talk over halfway the trip. I'm in my feelings.
To Arkansas?
Yeah, and that's a long drive, man. And we get down into his house. We're pulling in. And he was like, you have a chance to rewrite your whole story here. He said, you really do? Yeah, whatever, man. He doesn't know that I'm about to be really sick off some boxing. I can't tell him that. So I get out of the truck, man. We go in. And it was, when they released me, it was right when they shut the state down. The very next day, they shut the state down because of COVID. So we literally, if I wouldn't have got released, they wouldn't have released me from prison.
You would have been hit.
Yeah, and there was people that was, until they opened the state back up, they weren't allowed to let you out of prison. So I get home, and I'm dope sick, man. I'm throwing up, using the bathroom. Oh, it was horrible. It was a nightmare. I mean, this is where I say God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, because I had nobody to get anything from to ease that pain from that sickness. So this was one of them sicknesses that I feel like God let me remember for a reason. Like, I remember it all. I remember to when I could finally fall asleep. I remember everything about it. And every time I would leave my dad's living room, he would follow me. And I'm like, look, man, you got to stop. You have to stop. Like, he'd just walk in the room. I'm like, you can't do that, man. I'm like, stop. Well, this is my house. I said, listen, man. I said, you're the one that invited me here. I said, you can't do certain things, man. You got to stop. So it was rough for us about the first month, about the first 2 months. I get to work. My mom, the whole time, she's sick. And I'm talking to her, and she's like, Bub, just work with him. He's trying to help you. Give him your bank card. And I'm like, give him my bank card? I just got a job, you know what I mean? So my mom made me promise her that I would. So I did. I gave my dad a bank card, man. About 3 months straight of working to save my money, I wanted a car. My dad was like, do it the right way. I said, what do you mean? He's like, get a license. I said, man, I owe child support. He said, just pray about it. Do it the right way. And still, every time it's always pray about it, pray about it, pray about it. And I'm like, all right. So I was going to church with him. I prayed about it. I'm like, I need a license. Daggone it. If I didn't call the next day, that Monday, I got a hold of my child support lady that I've never, ever talked to. I'm $30,000 plus behind in child support. I said, I'm released from prison. I said, I want to pay my child support, but the only way I can do this is if you release my license. She said, I'll release him. That easy. I said, are you serious? She said, yeah. She said, you'll pay your reinstatement fee. I'll release him.
What's cool about that is so many times, like, we talk to people and, like, these little things happen because God's so big, right? And we're like, oh, I'm just going to have to deal with this. Yeah, I'll pray about it or whatever. But then these little things that are big things, like God just moves something. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And he's showing you. He's like, okay, like, you don't want to come to church. You don't really want to talk to me, but watch what I can do.
Yeah.
Watch what I can do. All, like, even like with your mom. And if you're watching, like, you have somebody struggling, people were putting their foot down. That's when stuff starts to change. you know, and we'll get into some episodes talking about enabling and stuff like that. But you've got to set boundaries and say, I'm not budging. And like with the church thing, with my daughters, like, you know, I mean, if you're staying in my house, you got to go to church. Yeah. And there was times like they love it now, but they're like, I don't want to. It's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's you got to go to school and you got to go to church. But I love hearing people's stories and those little things, because like when I look back at my story, it's like, man, you know, I mean, I was really looking for a vehicle or something like that. And I'm not doing prosperity stuff, but you know what I mean? Like you had a need and God was like, hold on a second. You know what I mean? Just talk to me about it, and boom. So you got your license.
Yeah, I got my license, and I saved up for a car. First time ever, like, actually worked for my money and bought a car. So I got a license, a car. I'm staying at my dad's. And every time I would go to church, I would feel like I wasn't supposed to be there, kind of. Like, I knew I see all these people, they're happy, right? They're happy. But in my mind, how are they living out of here? You know what I mean? Like, I've just always thought that. So, man, I got up one Sunday, and I walked out of the church, and I sat in the hallway. Now, my dad's still sitting in there, and the pastor stopped his preaching thing and come out there. He said, what's going on? And Pastor Henry is amazing. I love this man to pieces, man. And I said, how do you know if you're saved? How do you know, man? Like, how do you know? People say, oh, I'm saved. How do you know? And he said, well, come with me. We went back to his office. We really did, man. And we sat there.
So he stopped the sermon
100%.
and took you back to the office.
Yes, he did.
That's
yes,
what I'm
he
talking
did.
about, yeah.
So we get back there, and we're sitting in his little office, and he said, bow your head. I bowed my head, and we prayed. And that was when I got my moment of clarity. Like, that was when I felt what I was searching for. And I'm like, man. From that point on, I was on time to church. I would make it there Wednesday nights, too. Because I was the type person, if I was at work, I couldn't go to church. So Wednesday nights, I would just work some extra hours.
Right.
I didn't have to go there, you know what I mean? But I started, like, making it a priority to get there. I started enjoying being with my dad. I got to a point to where if I couldn't take my dad, I didn't go. I didn't. And I started really, like, I met this lady, and I told her, I said, I'm in recovery. I don't drink. I don't do nothing like that. She's like, okay. She's like, well, I'm going to pick you up and you can come to my house. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, she picks me up, and she said, I got to make a stop real fast. And I kind of started thinking, like, what is she doing? Well, she was going to the liquor store. When she pulled in the parking lot, I said, man, what is going on? She goes inside, and I'm like, Lord, I know what this is going to be if I drink. So he helped me. She come out. I look right at her. And I say, hey, man, check it out. I need you to do me a favor. She's like, what's that? I'm like, I need you to take me back home. She said, for what? We're about to go. I said, I told you I don't drink. Well, you don't have to drink. This is for me. I said, I understand that. But what if I don't like you when you get drunk? Then I'm stuck an hour away from my dad's house, and I got to call my dad and say, yep, you were right. Come get me. You know what I mean? So it was on the 4th of July, I believe it was, something like that, maybe like the 4th or the 5th. And I come back home to my dad's. She got mad, and I said, don't even trip. I'll give you the gas money. She really starts getting mad, and I said, listen, you can let me out right here, and I'll walk back. I'm not putting myself in that situation no more. That's when I knew, like, my growth had started right there. Yeah. So I get back to my pops's, and I'm sitting there, and I just knew he was going to be that guy, like, I told you so, you know what I mean? Well, my dad wasn't home. He was at this cookout. And he come in, he said, what you doing? So I told him what happened. He said, I'm proud of you, man. I said, yeah, that's all right. You want to go with me? I said, nah, I'm cool. I'm just going to sit here and watch some TV. All right. About 3 minutes pass, and my dad's coming back in the door. Comes in, sits down on the couch. I said, what are you doing? He said, well, if you're going to hang out here, I'm going to hang out with you. So me and him just hung out, watched some TV together. We kicked and talked.
Dude, this is so, there's so many cool things going on as like you're telling the story, but that's like one of them. You know what I mean? That little stuff like we missed when we're getting high. Like, you know what I mean? If you have somebody in your life that will cancel their plans to come sit on the couch with you just to watch TV, like, it makes me emotional talking about it because it's like, man, you know, what a blessing. And you had that the whole time. You know what I mean? You didn't have a relationship, and you kind of, like, when we're in addiction, we blame everybody else. So it's like, it's on him. But also, like, when people talk about restoration, and you'll go to church, and I used to hear about, like, restoration. But, like, when he starts to restore relationships and family stuff, like, think about, you know, your dad was, like, ready to drop you off on the side of the road. He was, you know, he wasn't playing with you. And now y'all are just chilling, you know, when everybody's out celebrating and fireworks and just having a moment with your dad where he came back in and was like, yeah, I'm chilling with you. That just is like, that's such a cool moment, like in your story of just like, okay, these two, it seemed like they could, you know, they could barely stand each other. Right. And now, you know, it's a holiday and everybody just, you know, the both of you came back from whatever you were doing and you ended up there together, like having a moment.
So, you know, this whole time that I've been out, I called my son every single day. I love you. I miss you. How you doing? Nothing. Very rare would he call me back. So the relationship was more or less ruined, man. Like, I done that, not him. I did all that. And I've always loved my son. I didn't know how to be a dad. I was stuck in addiction, man. I wasn't responsible. Addiction tore me and my son up. My son's girlfriend was pregnant. And I remember talking to my dad one day. I'm like, no matter what I do, he won't answer me. He won't talk to me. He said, look what you put him through before, when you had every opportunity to talk to him, when he wanted to talk to you. I said, I know. I'm sorry. He said, it's going to take a while, Bob. You're going to have to show him that. So my dad decides he's going to get married. And my wife now, I'd known my whole life. Well, her and my sister are like best friends. And Wendy, I had talked to her, and I'm like, well, why don't you come down for my dad's wedding? She's like, all right. She had vacation, so she comes down. I called my son. He said he couldn't make it. Well, when Wendy comes down, that's when I decided I wanted to be with Wendy. And I knew leaving Arkansas was like my comfort zone. Coming back here to Indiana was real. This is where I'm from, man. This is where I've jugged. I've did everything here. I know everybody. I know all the wrong people. I don't know too many right people. So I really started to pray. Like, God, I want to be with her, man. Like, I really do, right? But I was so scared, like I didn't have the confidence to move back here. So right before that, my grandson's born. And I got real depressed. I've never been one to say I'm going to kill myself. Mm-hmm. I've tried shooting dope, but I've never actually tried to hang myself or nothing like that.
Yeah.
So I write this letter out to my pops. And it's more or less like a thank you for everything you've done type thing. But this is over with for me. Here I am sober and can't get my son's relationship back, and that tore me up. Like, that really honestly did have me really messed up. And my plan was to drive to Columbus, meet my grandson, and end my life. I literally cried from Arkansas to Columbus, Ohio. I remember pulling up to my son's house. Now, we ain't really had a conversation before this for the last year I've been home. I pulled up to his house. And God, how do you say it? Like, God put this feeling in me that I feel like could have either went good or bad. And I asked him, I said, Lord, you have to help me with this right here. I got out of my car, walked up to the door, knocked on the door. My son opened the door. This is the first time I've seen him in a few years. As he opened the door, he handed me my grandson. He said, Dad, ain't he cool? Handed him to me. Every feeling that I had in my body changed. I went from not wanting to live to I had to live. I had to. That was when God completely 100% changed the way I viewed my life when I met my grandson. I remember my son like, well, we're going to go to, it was late when I got there, probably 2 or 3 in the morning. And I remember, I'm just holding him and I'm looking at him. And he's just looking up at me. He's a baby. And Jay was getting ready to go to bed. And I'm like, I'll keep him down here if you want me to. He's like, yeah, cool. You can keep him if you want to. Gave me a bottle. And I remember laying on the couch with him. And he just stared at me. And I cried, man. Like, it was tears of like, when I watched my son be born, that was the most ultimate high I ever had in my life. When I held my grandson the second or the first time, that was right there with it. That was absolutely with it. I knew from that point on, I had to change my mind frame. Not just being sober, I had to really, truly change the way I viewed life and the way I was living life.
So if anybody's listening to this, this stuff happens. So you're basically, you drive from Arkansas
to Columbus, Ohio.
To Columbus, Ohio, and you're planning on like ending your life pretty much. And I think so many times it's like you don't know what God has in store for you. And, you know, like it breaks my heart sometimes because I've seen people fall short, you know, like not make it there. But if you're going through something, like literally everything can change like that. You know, like, and God can move in it. And so many times, like, people are headed, you know, we've talked about this already, but like they're headed this path. And they're like, I'm going this way. I'm ready to end it. And it's like, if you only knew what God had for you on the others, you know what I mean? Like, think about that. Like, you know, he was going to restore your family, like bring all of these, you know, emotions and feelings and like this joy into your life, not a happiness, but a joy, all on the other side of like that misery, which was you know, you telling yourself it was bad. You were telling yourself it was bad and it wasn't going to get any better. You know what I mean? It wasn't God. You know, and then you get there and God's like, hold on a second. As soon as you get to this door, I'm about to change your life again. Yeah. And boom.
And he did. But, you know, the whole time through the first year of my sobriety, I craved drugs. I could walk into a room and smell something, and I would think of a certain drug. I would see somebody bouncing around with a lighter. I would think certain things. Like, I really would. And it was really hard for me, man. And when I went to my dad and told him, I said, I'm going back to Indiana. He looked at me and he said, God's got you. He said, you're a good man. He said, you've worked really hard this last year and I'm proud of you. He said, your mom is proud of you. And I felt like I couldn't go without my dad's blessing. Mm-hmm. And my dad gave it to me. So I get all packed up, and I'm moving back to Indiana to be with my wife. That was one 10-hour ride where I don't think I stopped praying or crying the whole entire ride. I told God in that car, if you don't take the taste of alcohol and drugs from me, not the thought, the taste of it, I'm not going to make this. I'm not going to be able to do it. And if you can't, please just take my life. Let me die sober now. Just don't put me through it, please. Don't put my family through it. And I was scared. I was real scared, man. Like, the closer I got, I started thinking, like, man, did I mess up? Should I have not done this? And then my wife, she's not in addiction. So she don't understand it, you know what I mean? She's like, well, you know, and I'm like, man, I can't do this. I pulled in, and he did that for me. He took it from me. I started working up here, and I would see certain people that I may have known from my past, and I would go the other way. I really would, man. Like, I avoided it like the plague. I wanted completely away from it. And I was working at this lumber yard, not really making good money, but I worked. Went to work every single day and worked 60 hours a week, man, 70 hours a week. I'm a workaholic. So I'm there, and they had a Christmas party. Hey, man, come here and get your bonus. And I said, where's it at? They said at the Legion or something like that in South Milford. I said, nah, I ain't going. I said, what do you mean? I said, I don't drink. Oh, it'll be all right. I said, no, I ain't going. I don't go. You can keep the bonus. Probably ain't much anyways, you know what I mean? I'm like, nah, I'm good. So the owner calls me like, Bob, come down. I said, listen, I told y'all plenty of times I'm not coming. And I meant it, like I'm not coming, bro. Well, you can bring your wife. I said, first of all, I wouldn't take my wife to a place like that, no way, because I know me. I said, it's my wife, man. I wouldn't do that. Oh, okay, it's fine. So I moved from that job, started working in a trailer factory. Orders drugs everywhere in the trailer factory. And I remember praying on my way to work. Like, Lord, there's got to be something for me to do other than this right here. Like, with my past experiences, I had no idea what was in store for me, man. They shut the trailer factory down that I was working at. So there's a place literally 2 minutes from my house called Triton Metal. And I go there and I put an application in. I get in there. I'm a good worker. I'm a dedicated worker. So I started working. They like me. Well, I made a video one day just on sobriety. Just a random video. Had no idea what I was doing. And I did it at work. Well, I got like maybe a couple hundred views off of it. I'm like, man, that's what's up. So I'm talking to my mom. And I'm like, Mom, I'm going to make this page. And my wife, she's like, a page? I was like, I'm going to start something. I just don't know what I'm going to call it. And she said, well, what is it going to be about? I said, I want to gravitate towards addiction. I said, that's what I want to do. I said, you know, John, you know how God calls some people to be a preacher.
Yeah.
Some people a street minister. I feel like God has called me to show change and growth out of addiction, to show the ones that honestly is stuck in it. Well, change is possible.
Sometimes we bypass that part of the process, like with the videos and stuff. Like, people are watching that are still stuck, and we get to a place like, I work with people in drug courts and stuff like that that are kind of, that like they're in the process of getting that help, but there's still people that are all the way stuck, and don't even think that there's a way out. Mm-hmm. And, like you said, everybody has different callings, and some of us, like, the light on us is to be like, hey, like, you can get out of this. Like, there is a way out. And we say it with such confidence. Yeah. They're like, well, maybe I can get out. And maybe those crazy people that, I'm watching these videos, maybe they're onto something. And it takes sometimes somebody that came from that hell, like, I can go and look at somebody that's, wearing fentanyl patches or in line at the methadone clinic. Like, I was here. Yeah. I was here. My number was 1611. I'm telling you, there's a way out. I was as bad, like, I was bad. Yeah. But there's a way out. And I think that's, and we're going to stay on that topic, but that's really, like, such an important thing, is like, we go to the gas station if somebody's struggling, like, I can talk to you and I can pray for you. And another thing, like, I like about your story is, like, sometimes we're like, oh, because you do hear it a lot. Well, why don't you pray about it? And sometimes in life, you're like, I'm tired of people giving me the advice of praying about it. But if you understood what we're saying when we're saying talk to God about it. God, the one, if you believe, had created all of this, that guy, you're talking to him and asking him, like, hey, can you take this taste away from me because I can't do this? And he does it. And he did it. And he does it. And, it's like, and we hear these stories, like, it's not just a couple of random crazy people, like, it's all over the place. And it's just like, it's so hard, like, living in this world where there's so many people struggling, like, you want to, like, it's in your spirit, it's busting out. Like, I've got to tell whoever's going to listen that, you know what I mean, my life was saved from this life. And I'm going to tell anybody who will listen. I'm going to tell people who ain't listening.
Yeah, the ones that ain't listening, I'm going to keep telling them. So I'm telling my wife, I said, I want to make a brand. And this might have been my arrogance in it. I tell her, I said, I want to wear my own logo. I want people, when I die, to know what I did. Like, for real, like what I was about. Like, that's what I want. And she was like, well, what are you going to call it? I said, I don't know. I had no clue. So I'm talking to my mom, and I'm like, it's got to be something with, like, felons. And my mom told me, man, my mom's the one that actually named my page. I was like, felonies something. And she was like, what about felonies to recovery? And I was like, that's it. You did it.
Moms came through again.
Yeah. So I make the page, and I start posting videos. And the videos that I'm posting is just in the morning before work. At Triton Metal, I started doing them like at my break time. Every single day at break time, I'd be in the back posting video. People look at me like I'm crazy. I mean, they'd be like, oh, this guy right here, you know what I mean? So I would do that. And I met a lady named Tara Bustos from Moms of an Addict.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. That's
an awesome ministry, Moms of an Addict.
Yes.
They have a Facebook page, and they've got meetings in Indiana. I think they've got them outside of Indiana now too. But if you're listening to this, pause it and go like that page, because they literally are an amazing group of people.
They are. So Tara's husband is an engineer at Triton. And he seen one of my videos, and he comes up to me, and he was like, Bob, you got to meet my wife. I'm like, well, that's kind of odd, you know what I mean? He was like, nah, for real. He was like, you need to meet her. He was like, because she does the same things as what you're promoting. She was like, would you mind if I gave her your number? I'm like, all right. So I give it to her. She calls me, and she's like, hey, would you like to come give your story at Moms of an Addict in Concordia? Sure. Never done before. I'm like, sure, why not, right? So it was like 3 months away, but I continue to make these videos. And I feel like I'm going in a dead-end spot. Dead-end spot. Couldn't get a raise at work. I was good enough for them to tell me every single day that I'm a heck of a worker, but couldn't get a raise. Couldn't get this. Started getting in my feelings about it. So I come home one night, and I tell my wife, I'm like, I want to work in a treatment center. She was like, do you? Because I'd come up with this random stuff at night while I'm in bed. And she's like, well, then look it up. I'm like, well, help me look it up. So we started looking up on Indeed, all these treatment places. I don't got no qualifications. So I left it at that. Didn't look no more. I went, spoke at Moms of an Addict. I get Zach Dawson from Bare Knuckle Recovery. I get
Zach, that's our guy.
His info. Well, what I didn't know was he was going to play a big part of my life, Zach was, once I was able to meet him. So this whole time, she introduces me to the Bare Knuckle Recovery podcast. So I'm listening to it. Nate and Tommy, listen to them all the time. I just don't know. Never had a chance to meet them. So I go on for probably about 3 or 4 more months at work, and it was a really crappy day at work one day. And I made a video at work. And I'm like, if you know anybody that works in a treatment center, please tag my page to them. Help me get into where I want to be at. Dude, it wasn't 5 minutes after lunch. The CEO of the company walks back to me. He said, Bob, you making videos at work? I said, yeah. He said, all right. He said, I seen your video. I said, did you? He's like, yeah. Well, here comes the owner. Walking back. Hey, Bob. Yeah. He said, you making videos at work? I said, yeah. He said, why don't you turn that machine off for me? I'm like, oh, man. I need this job, right? I got bills. He said, and this machine don't turn off. They always keep it running. So he told me to turn it off. He said, go with Brevin. I said, all right. So I go up into the thing, and
Did you think they were walking you out?
oh, I
or
thought
what?
I was fired.
Yeah.
I thought I was fired for sure. So Brevin said, Bob, I hate to lose you as an employee because you are an awesome worker. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And he was like, but I know somebody in the treatment center. He said, I want to show you something. He sent my video to her on Messenger. So I'm like, for real? He was like, what do I look like not helping you get to where you want to be at in life? He said, you're in the wrong role, man. He said, you're doing the wrong job anyways. He said, you can tell your passion for what you do. I said, I love it, bro. I really do, man. I 100% love talking about addiction. So he sent it to this lady named Kelby. Well, I get a call from Fort Wayne Recovery. Well, I realized that she worked with Fort Wayne Recovery, so I called Tara Bustos. And I'm like, do you know anybody at Fort Wayne Recovery? She's like, absolutely. She's like, that's where Zach Dawson's at. Now, I remember when I spoke at her thing that I had Zach Dawson's contact info, but I never used it. So when she told me that, I hung the phone straight up, and I called Zach. Hey, man, this is Bob. He's like, hey, how you doing, buddy? I said, listen, there's an opportunity, I think, for me to get in at Fort Wayne Recovery, man. Can you put a word in for me? He said, absolutely, man. Send me your resume, and I'll make sure it gets to where it needs to go to. Absolutely. Problem is, I don't got a resume. So I spin him for a day. The CEO of the company tells me, do you have a resume? I said, no. He said, do you mind if we help you make one? Now, this is the orders from the owner for him to help me. They've been a godsend to me, Triton Metal was. Like, they 100%, man, they was on board with helping me any way they could. So I go home. I tell my wife, like, hey, let's make a resume. She's like, all right. So me and her make one. And I thought it was good, right? So we get back to her. I'm like, Brevin, I got a resume. He was like, cool, let me check it out. He looks at it. He said, if you was applying for this company or any of these factories around here, you got a superb resume. He said, but if you was applying for a treatment center, not one spot does that say anything about addiction or anything about your qualifications. He said, so would you mind if I help you make one? I'm like, absolutely. So my manager sees me. He goes to the owner and says, you know, Bob's just standing over there talking. He's not at his machine. He said, Bob's doing what I told Bob to do. He said, what's that? He said, well, Bob is making a resume for a different job with Brevin. He said, so we're helping him build a resume for a different company? He said, absolutely. Is there a problem with that? No. He walks away. The owner comes up and he was like, Bob, you go in there with Brevin. You do what you got to do. He said, my HR team 100% is on board to help you any way you need it. I said, all right. So they helped me. I get this resume shot to Zach. Fort Wayne Recovery calls me again. Hey, would you like to come in for an interview? I'm geeked. I'm at work. I'm like, yeah, I'll leave right now if you need me to. But I'm a worker. So I asked them, I said, is there any way I can finish out the day and come in tomorrow or something? They're like, yeah. So I finished getting my hours for the day. I go in the next day. And they're like, well, we got to hire, we got to interview 8 people. I said, man, I need this job. I said, this is what I do. She's like, well, a lot of people say that. And I said, no, you don't understand. So she said, I'll contact you back. I'm losing my faith, right, on this job. Just one little incident, I'm losing my faith, right? So we walk out, and I said, hey, listen, check it out, ma'am. She's like, yeah. I said, my drug test is clean. She said it is. I said, okay. If you put that application to the top of your pile, you will not regret it. I give you my word on that. I said, the references that I have is the owner of a company and the CEO of a company that will tell you I work 65, 70 hours a week, no complaints. Some days I work 16-hour days. I said, and I don't complain at all. I'm a worker. She said, okay. Well, I leave, really disappointed. And I make it from Fort Wayne. I was going to Elkhart to Bible study. On the process of going there, I get a phone call, but I was on my bike, so I missed the call. It was the owner of the company of Fort Wayne Recovery. want me to come in so he can meet me. So the lady tells me, when I call her back, she said, usually if he's calling you in, he's going to offer you the job. She was like, talk to him the same way you did me. All right. So I go back there. He's like, I'll offer you the job. He said, do you know what this is? I'm like, it's detox, right? He said, no. He said, this is aftercare. I was disappointed then. I'm like, man, I don't know nothing about aftercare. And he was like, are you willing to take the job? I was like, yeah, absolutely. He said, okay. He said, your background check comes back. I said, well, I've been to prison. I said, I don't got no sex cases, nothing like that, so I should be fine. He was like, you'll be all right then. Well, like a week, dude. I go back to work the next day, and I put my 2-week notice in. I'm like, man, I just know God's going to give me this job, right? So for like a week straight at work, I'm calling every break. Hey, did my background check come back? This lady really is getting tired of talking to me.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, not yet. Well, the last day, it was on a Friday. I was upset, man. I go home. Everybody was gone at my house, so I went upstairs and get in the shower, and my phone rings. I almost didn't answer it. I answered it, and it was a lady named Nikki at Allendale. She's like, hi, is this Robert Springer? I'm like, yeah. She's like, this is Nikki from Allendale Treatment. Would you be interested in coming for an interview? I said, no. She said, huh? I'm like, nah. I said, no disrespect, ma'am. I said, but I've worked really, really hard to get my foot in the door of Fort Wayne Recovery. And she says, no, sir, they referred you to me. I said, nah, I didn't believe her.
Yeah.
So as she's telling me on the phone, like, no, listen, we do that sometimes. I said, I'll tell you what, you give me your word that you're not just telling me this to fill a position, and I'll come for an interview. She said, I'll give you my word. Thank you. So I set up an interview. I come in, take another drug test. She interviews me. And she looked at me. She was like, I'll give you the job. I said, oh, yeah? She said, yeah. And gave me more than what I was supposed to, she said, because you got experience in this. I'm like, wow. I started crying when she gave me the job. She said, what's wrong? I said, you don't understand. I get to walk out of here and call my mom, tell my mom I got a job at a treatment center. I said, you just don't know what my mom's been through with me. And she almost starts crying. And I said, you just don't, just to be able to call her and tell her that. And I called my mom, and we're both crying on the phone. And she's like, you deserve, I still got the text on my phone, man. My mom was like, you deserve it. She said, but if something happens, you don't get it. Know that God will put something in your life. So I'm like, all right. So I'm working there, doing good, loving my job. My mom gets sick. I got a phone call that my mom was in the hospital and she was doing really bad. So I go in the office, and I was a tech at the time. And I go in there and I'm like, I'm sorry. I just started. I said, but I think I got to go to Ohio. They're like, what's wrong? I said, my mom's pretty sick. And this is when I knew Allendale was a good company. They said, don't apologize for that. Go. See you later. All right. Tara said, all I ask is you just keep me informed. I said, go do what you got to do. Nikki the same way. I said, all right. So I go up and I see my mom, and she was bad. She was in the hospital. She was in there for like a month. They finally let her out. I came home. I said, if anything gets worse, I'll come back up here, but I got to go back to work. I just started this job. My mom was like, don't lose that job. Make sure you go. I'll be all right. I said, well, at the end of the day, you're my mom, and I don't care about that job. I'll find another one if I have to. She said, no, Bub, don't look at it like that. All right. I get home. My mom left the hospital to go home. She wasn't home 2 days. I had to go back. I'm at work again. I get a phone call. At this time, she's really bad, that we should all come back up to Columbus. So I'm sitting there at work. I stepped away, and I'm like, Lord, instead of praying for my mom this time, like, save her, fix her, I said, Lord, don't let her suffer no more. Don't Don't let her suffer no more. Don't let me be selfish in my prayers. Just please don't let her suffer. So I walk in the building and I'm sitting there, man, and I said, I got to go, man. I got to go see my mom. I have to. So I go in the office once again. They're like, okay. I take off, and my mom doesn't have a clue, nobody does, that I'm on my way up there. I get to the hospital this time, and I walk in the room, and my mom's sitting there, and she said, hey, sir. I'm like, what's up? She was like, my son Bub's here. Can you go get him? And it was me she was talking about. I said, Mom, I'm right here. She looked. I just knew you was here. I'm like, I'm here. I ain't going nowhere. So I sat for a week straight with her. Didn't leave the room, no showers, no nothing. I sat there with her all the time. And she was real sick, real bad. She said, Bub, I want to go home. I said, Mom, if you leave this hospital, man, you're going to die. She said, I don't care. I don't want to die here. I want to go home. I'm trying to talk her into staying. Because this is what I want her to do, right? Not what she wants to do. And then it come to be about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting there. And she woke up. Man, she gets to cussing at me and yelling at me. I said, what's wrong with you? She said, you can leave. I said, why can I leave? She thought it was because of me. She was still there. She said, Bub, please, I'm begging you, take me home. I want to go home. I said, all right, man. I said, you want to go home? She said, I want to go home, please. She said, I don't want to die here. Don't let me die here. I said, all right. I walk out into the thing. I said, we're leaving. I said, I'll give you till the morning time to get her stuff ready. I said, but I'm not asking. I'm telling you that me and my mom is leaving here as soon as it gets light out. I'm taking her home. Lady tried to argue with me. I said, listen, if she needs an oxygen tank, I said, then give her one. Well, it's not protocol, I said. So you would let an ill woman leave here sick, knowing you know she could die within the first 10 miles, and you won't give her a $50 oxygen bottle? I said, I'll pay for it. That's what you want, I'll pay for it. I'm in my own pocket right now. Her doctor comes in and she said, there's nothing we can do for her. I said, your mom is, she said, I hate to say this. It's in God's hands now. She said, your mom should have been dead 6 months ago. She said, I don't know what it is that's keeping her alive other than her own sure will and God. I said, all right. So I took my mom that day. I loaded her up in the car. Me and her rode back to, she was in Columbus. My mom lived in Canton up by Akron. And this ride was the calmest ride I've ever been on in my life with my mom. And she just had her window down, her arm out, just going through the wind. And I said, I'm taking you home. And she said, no, Bub, God's taking me home. And I remember I was sitting there, and at first I started to get mad at God. Like, don't do this to me. Well, she said, Bub, do you know why I believe in God? I said, I don't. Why? She said, because he's answered every prayer that I've ever prayed for you. She said, it's took a while, but he did it. She said, I'm so proud of you that it's unreal. She said, don't ever lose your sobriety, your faith for no one. She said, God will help you through anything and everything. He cured you from drugs. And she said, you know I'm going to die. And my mom was my most favorite person in the whole world, man. And I said, I don't want to talk about that. She said, no, you got to accept it. I said, no, I don't want to talk about it. I turned the radio on. And the closer we got to her house, she said, will you stop and give me an ice cream? She really couldn't even eat the ice cream. She was getting it everywhere. I said, yeah. Got her ice cream. And I knew in my heart, It was the last one that she was ever going to have. I knew it. I knew it in my heart. We get to her house. She lasts us 2 days at her house. It was about 3 in the morning, October 6th. My wife wakes me up. And she died. Like, I got up, and she just looked defeated in this chair. I walked out. I couldn't deal with it. I knew what was happening. I walked out. My wife come outside, and she was like, go pray. And I'm like, I don't know when. I said, she's going to die, and she said she is. She's going to die. Go pray with her. I swear it to you, John. I walked in there. My mom was sitting in the chair. She was a bigger woman. I come behind her, and I have my arms around her, and I'm holding her. And they started praying. My sister, my brother, her husband, my mom, or my wife. When they was done, I said, Mom, I said, I love you with all my heart. I said, I'll be all right. Go ahead and go home. I kissed her on the cheek, and that fast, my mom died. It was like turning the light switch off. I felt my mom's heart go 100 miles an hour for about 1 second. I never in my life felt anything like that, and she died. The moment I told her I'd be all right. I don't know if she was waiting for that, but my mom got to die with me knowing the Lord and being sober. I promised God when I made it through that I will help any and everybody I can in recovery. I will do everything I can to help people. The team that I work with is amazing. Like, I truly, honestly found a group of people that I can call on a bad day. I felt like using. My mom died. All her medicine was right there. And I remember looking down at it. I'm an opiate user. That's what she had right there. And I looked at my wife. And my wife looked down at it. And she just picked everything up. My sister did too. Got everything out. And for a split second, I thought about how I could end this pain. But then I thought about it afterwards. If I can make it through the hardest day of my life, then I can be a witness to somebody else that it's possible. And they say that God won't put you through nothing that you can't handle. And I know I'm going to have harder times to come still than that. But when I lost my mom, there was one person in my life I never had a question about loving. I didn't. She loved me no matter what. No matter if I was 100 pounds soaking wet or I was 260 pounds coming out of prison. Didn't matter if I was running around smoking crack, stealing money, shooting heroin. No matter what I did, she loved me. We would talk, we would argue, we would fight. That was the way we was with each other. But I miss my mama so much. And all these things is happening for me now.
My aunt passed away about a year ago, and I have a good mom, but my aunt she never had kids, and so we were always super close. And like when she was gone, it's still, a little over a year later, like you wake up and it's like they're gone. You know what I mean? Because I've never known, like my grandparents was different, but like with her, it was like I've never really known life without her, and but I want to tell you a cool story. We had this song that they were playing at church, and it's Holy Forever. CC Winans has a really good version of it, but like I was listening to it at church, and I just started crying, and I don't know what was going on with me. I cry a lot at church, but you know what I mean? I was like crying, so I just had it on my head, my JBLs for like 3 days. If I was doing a call, I'd hang up the call, it would pop back on, and then I was in my driveway listening to it, and just for a split second, you know what I mean? Because like when we're like singing holy, we're in alignment with heaven, because that's what they're doing up there is holy, hallelujah. And just for a split second, I was there, just hands up, singing holy, and I looked down this road, picked my friends that like I really love that overdosed, and grandparents, but I looked down this line of people, and they weren't the same, but I knew who they were, you know what I mean? Because they're not suffering the pain, you know what I mean? All of the sickness is gone, and then right next to me, I saw my grandparents, and I'm in tears, and it was real quick. But then my aunt was right next to me, and she's not hurting anymore. She's just up there singing holy, you know what I mean? Just praising God, and I think that's when I hear about a loss like that, it's just like, it's a beautiful time. Paul says, I can't wait to be separated from this flesh, but like they need me here right now. But like the beautiful, not only do we have God to pray to, but one day, you get what I'm saying? Like there's going to be reunions of these things, and these people that prayed for us, my aunt, all these people that prayed us, through our addiction, and still, they may have set boundaries, but they never bailed. And they're up there now, just like in perfect shape.
Because AA, CA, NA didn't do it for me, man. It didn't. I don't knock nobody that does it. I work in a treatment center.
Yeah.
We promote that stuff. But I'm going to be honest with you. When somebody asks me, God's the one that delivered me from drugs and alcohol. 100%. I'm a firm believer in that. I tell people that. Even at work, they'll ask me, hey, man, how do you do this? I'm like, listen, God truly took it from me. That's why I'm able to do this podcast today. That's why I'm able to do the things that I do in life today, is because God answered my mama's prayers and mine. But I truly believe in my heart that I had to live a certain way to get where I'm at today. Now, I don't know what his purpose is for me. I really don't. I got 2 brothers and a sister that died as well. She's buried 3 kids. And I was probably the worst out of all of them. And here I am. I'm still alive. I was asked a couple weeks ago if there's anything I would change in my life. I said no. I wouldn't change being molested as a kid. I wouldn't change being in foster homes. I wouldn't change that. Living the life that I lived has made me the man that I am today. Living in and out of the penitentiary, living homeless, going to soup kitchens to eat, has truly, honestly, kept me humble today to respect the gas that I have in my vehicle, the house that I have, the wife that I have. When I see a beautiful lady in public, I'm a man, yeah, I'm like, man, she's pretty, but at the end of the day, what I have at home is amazing to me. And I'm able to be the best husband I can be today with my wife when it comes to certain stuff like that, like make sure the bills is paid. Doing the things that I should do, and the only reason I'm able to live the life that I'm living today is because I'm sober, and the only reason I'm sober today is because God took drugs and alcohol from me.
Amen.
And that's, I put God, my recovery, and my family. Because without God, I don't got recovery. Without recovery, I don't got my family. I really don't. I am a wreck when you take God out of my life. Really, I don't last 2 weeks out here, and literally in 2 weeks, I'll destroy a bank account. I will lose 20 pounds. I will start doing things that is completely off the charts, and you'll be like, nah, that's not him. No, that's me. You'll read about me on the news, like, and I don't do that today. Like, I really don't, man. Today, like when I leave here, I'll go home, make dinner with my wife. We'll eat some dinner, and that'll be that. Well, I got to go to the gym tonight because I didn't go this morning. But other than that,
I got to go in the morning. At night, dude, I just, for some reason, I never make it.
I go every morning. Me and my cousin meet up at the Y in Angola at 5 o'clock, Monday through Friday. And then I go at 6 o'clock on Saturday mornings. I take Sundays off. But I didn't go this morning because I had to go to court with a client today.
Yeah.
And that was amazing because I walked into the courthouse and one of the deputies that I knew from the Elkhart County Jail was like, back at it again, huh? I said, nah, bro, this one's different. He's like, huh? I'm like, I'm here to speak on somebody's behalf to keep them from going to jail, to get them some help. And he just kind of looked at me. I'm like, yeah, this time is different.
Does it not, like, how can it not blow your mind that, like, well, like with me, like, I am in staff meetings with judges.
Yeah.
And judges used to terrify me. You know what I mean? Like, I never did a big prison sentence, but, like, all the times I had to go in front of them, it was like, man, like, what's this dude going to do? And now I'm, like, in staff, you know, doing staffings with them and working with courts. It blows my mind. Only God can do that. All I have is a GED. You know what I'm saying? Like, and some certifications, but it's so crazy to look and be like, there's people, like, I talk and people are listening to me. So you're with Bare Knuckle Recovery now, and are you still with Allendale too? I mean, I know it's all kind of the same thing. So Bare Knuckle Recovery, that's what I was saying earlier. If you, especially if you're in Indiana, go like that page and you can send them.
We answer automatically. It's a 24-hour line. You can, if you go to the Bare Knuckle Recovery Facebook page, there's a spot for a message on it, and it's answered right away. Nobody's ever left on hold. If you are somebody that is struggling, you got a loved one that's struggling, or you yourself is struggling, all you have to do is message that out. Somebody will contact you back. It's not a recording. It's somebody in person. The 7 people that we have, 8 people, including myself, that is on the team is amazing. They're in recovery.
I know at least a few of them, and they're, you know, I mean, some of them are actually really close friends, so really solid people. Most of them in recovery, right?
Yeah. You can look them up on YouTube, Bare Knuckle Recovery on YouTube. They have a podcast on there where they just talk about struggles in life, and they have different people come on, whether it was somebody that was in addiction and changed their life around. They just, moms of an addict's been on it, you know what I mean? Like, they do a lot of different stuff on it.
Yeah, they had me and Cody on. You've been on once or twice, haven't
you? I've been on it 3 times now, I think.
3 times. So and you can actually, I listen to it on my Apple. My Apple podcast.
Apple and Spotify, yeah.
It's Bare Knuckle, the Bare Knuckle Recovery podcast, I guess, yeah. It's a purple sign with a fist.
Yeah.
Really good podcast, so go check that out. You can actually hear both of us on that if you look it up, and that's Nate and Tommy, which I love those dudes.
Yeah, great dudes, man.
Really good guys, yeah. Nate's really good at getting us plugged into people and, you know, the networking stuff, and Tommy is awesome and has a really nice shoe collection, I hear.
Yeah. I'm getting up there with him. Yeah. You can find mine, Felonies to Recovery, on Facebook. I just do like motivational videos every day, but I talk about like my life struggles and where I'm at today. I try to give a little bit of motivation and hope for the ones that are still struggling. For the friends that I've lost to overdoses, I feel like if I recover out loud for them, I'm a voice for them, right?
Yeah.
And I had a guy tell me one time, man, the best thing that stuck with me no matter what, man, is he told me, he said, you know, everybody in the graveyard would give anything to have a second chance. He said, and think about how many people was there for the very first time they ever tried fentanyl.
Man.
One time, barely touched it, died, never got a second chance from it.
See, I don't think so some people don't understand, like, we do the fentanyl, you know, awareness, prevention stuff, like, you know, and like we dig into that a lot. We have lost, you're talking about kids in, you know, middle school. I mean, some babies have gotten, but like it is becoming so normal for us to be like, oh, we lost another like
post on Facebook.
Yeah, a kid died, or, you know, a friend died. So like when we talk about the fentanyl stuff, that's another reason to educate yourself. If you have kids, you got to have these conversations with your kids and your family, because like with me and him, if we were coming up in this time right here, we wouldn't be alive.
No, not at all.
No, like I would have been out a long time ago, because literally everything, you think it's a Xanax, it's all fentanyl. They got you, if you're lucky enough to have a friend.
They find it in weed now. Like we've had people come to where I work at, and this is all I do. I don't do that, and test positive for it. And you know deep down inside that they're not lying. Like they was really true. Like this is all I did. Like I don't understand. And what it is it's cut with it.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. So I feel like the more people know about that, the safer they are. Because really, honestly, like you said, there's babies that just get a hold of something, or you know what I mean? And then it's here, we got to see another post on Facebook. And that's why I Recover Out Loud today, man. It's for the ones that's in silence and for the ones that's died. The moms, man, like, that is buried their kids over that, right? Mm-hmm. That is something that just motivates me. And if I can help one person with my videos, and I get people on a daily that hit me up like, hey, you're inspirational, thank you. And I'm like, thank you for the support. And it's amazing, man, what God has done in my life today.
So go check out Felonies to Recovery. I'm about to give you a list of things. If you haven't liked Escaping the Chains podcast and you're watching, shame on you. Go like it. Felonies to Recovery, Escaping the Chains, Bare Knuckle Recovery, and go like the Facebook page. They'll give you updates, but go listen to that, because that's a really informative podcast that they do on things going on in the community and some of the challenges. It digs in with different personalities, so it's like you get a wide perspective of what this issue, what this epidemic is. And I think that's all the plugs that we have. So we thank you all for joining us. Thanks, Bob. We appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll probably have you back on. I know we'll bump into each other soon. If you guys see Zach Dawson in Fort Wayne, buy the guy a coffee. That's our guy. Buy the guy a coffee. So we love y'all. And one of the things to pull from today is, people tell you to pray, but really, pray, because on the other side of some of these things, if you just trust God and you just pray, miracles can happen.